someone many of us have met and know, and we're awfully glad to have him with us today to speak to you. General Cardon is the commander of 2nd Army, commanding general of Army Cyber Command. And as you saw this morning, part of that triad of the Army Cyber Institute, the Cyber Center of Excellence, and then 2nd Army and Army Cyber, that is putting the future of our cyber force together every day, soldier by soldier, civilian by civilian, partner by partner, in a way that I think is going to guide us towards a remarkable future. He'll talk more about that. You'll see I've got the blackboard set up here, or the whiteboard set up here, and I know there'll be some expansion on that model. General Cardon, as an engineer officer commissioned from West Point in 1982, brings a wealth of experience in not only the business of warfighting, but also the understanding of complex systems and the understanding of the framework of systems. He's been a remarkable officer throughout his career. I've known him from the time he was in the Pentagon. He was always the answer guy. We would go to Ed Cardon to make sure we understood that our questions were right, and frankly, we understood the answer. He was always that on staff, but in the field, he's also been a person who's taken on the real tough challenges, everything from his time in Iraq, a lot of time spent in Iraq, Deputy Commanding General Support for 3rd Infantry, but also in Iraq of late, working in solving a variety of support issues for the entire force in Iraq. I'm very respectful of his background. One is a Deputy Commandant at Commanding General Staff College, a post I held, and an understanding of the schoolhouse, but as well he was the commander of the 2nd Infantry Division, second to none, in Korea, and came from that job to here and taking over Army Cyber. I think he is a leader of note, someone I think you'll enjoy listening to. Your questions are more than welcome at the end. He's got a little bit of time to take those questions. Again, it's askmetna, TechNet Augusta @gmail.com. As he's talking, think of those hard questions. He had about a 3-hour rest from after his flight from the Middle East. I think he's ready for the toughest questions, right, Ed? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present Commander Army Cyber and 2nd Army, General Ed Cardon.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here today. Thank you, Bob, again for the warm introduction, and thanks to AFCEA for bringing together such a great group of cyber stakeholders and partners from both industry, academia, and the Army. It's also great to be back here in Augusta. It is the future home of Army Cyber Command and 2nd Army, and we're really proud that that's already starting to take shape. And I also want to thank the community leaders, who I see out there, and the people of Augusta and the greater central Savannah River area for their warm hospitality. And General Fogarty, to the men and women of the Cyber Center of Excellence and the entire team of Fort Gordon for your partnership, I really want to thank you for what you have done to advance this space. Looking where we were a year ago, where we are now, where we're going to be a year from now, it's absolutely stunning. That wouldn't be possible without your leadership. And then I want to thank all the industry and academia partners here today. Today I'm going to talk, surprisingly, about convergence. And I was here this morning for General Fogarty's talk. And I also will start with a definition, and I also did the same analysis you did, and there's no definition. And so I describe it as tending to move toward one point or to approach one another, each other in form, function, or development. Now, to many in this room, you see convergence happening. I don't have to convince you. But convergence is more than any one isolated phenomena. It's about collapsing technologies, functions, activities that have far-reaching implications for our society and, by extension, our military. This is actually disruption. So the first big idea is the idea of convergence leads to the idea of disruption, the disruption of domains, the collapsing of jurisdictions, the crushing of rice bowls, the redefining of core competencies. I mean, how hard could this really be? Hard, really hard, and that's why convergence is so resisted. To be perfectly clear, and to put some of you at ease, I don't see convergence as a simulation. It may be a tighter coupling of integration, coordination, collaboration, or synchronization. And so I want to first start with the technology frame. So think about the smartphone. It's a tangible manifestation of convergence. It's a phone, it's a watch, it's a map, it's a GPS, it's a camera, it's a recorder, it's a flashlight. You can play games, you can read books, you can listen to the radio, watch TV, watch movies. You can access your bank account, it's a wallet. You can connect people all over the world, and the list is growing. That's technological convergence. And inside this phone, these effects are delivered a variety of different ways through different technologies, all converged into one device. And many in this room are in that end of the convergence business. Last year, you heard me say that I think we're in a technology revolution driven by wireless, mobile, advanced computing, advanced encryption, cloud technologies, virtual technologies, big data technologies. And I believe this revolution is going to drive convergence with even a faster tempo. So when you think about the disruption to the economic and operational underpinnings of the phone companies, bookstores, record stores, retail, technology companies over the last 10 years, convergence truly does cause a disruption of domains, jurisdictions, rice bowls, and core competencies. For the technological convergence is slicing through the entrenched norms tactically, operationally, and strategically. It's forcing us to examine what has been, what is, and it challenges us to consider what it could be. More to the point, technological convergence is demanding that we take action to create the change that we want, or we'll have to succumb to what others create. It's our response to this convergence that either enables or impedes our actions, and that's what I want to focus on today. For while I started with how technological convergence is used, I want to talk about operational convergence. For the challenge and the opportunity we face together is we are technologically converging, but I believe that we're operationally divergent. To take advantage of the technical convergence, the pace and tempo of this operational convergence that's required, as outlined by General Fogarty this morning, must increase. There may be an opportunity to have punctuated equilibrium. I know you're asking, what is that? Don't worry, I asked the same thing a few days ago when the staff was talking to me about how to describe this opportunity. But think of equilibrium as a steady state, and think about punctuated equilibrium as a sharp vertical line that establishes a new equilibrium in a much different plane at a fast rate. My fear, we may lose the war of ideas in this convergence because we're trapped by our current operational thinking. As far as we've come over the past decade, I still think we're near the beginning of what's truly possible. There's still time, but the window of opportunity to do this in a proactive manner is closing. What I want to do right now is back up and now re-enter this through a military construct. For decades, we've approached military operations through a regimented, some would say artificially segmented worldview. We divided our environment into an operational environment and an information environment. We have a divided construct of national power, diplomatic, informational, military, and economic. We have divided levels of war, tactical, operational, strategic. We have 5 domains: land, air, sea, space, and cyberspace. We've been discussing a spectrum of conflict, being the low end as civil support to civilian authorities, and at the highest end, nuclear war. And inside the operational environment as described by the Army, we have a doctrinal framework. For example, unified land operations has 4 operations: offense, defense, stability operations, and support to civilian authorities. We have 8 mission areas supported by 6 warfighting functions. Yet many sense we're missing something. And that's hinted in the debate over asymmetric warfare, hybrid war. And the other day I heard a new term, hyper-asymmetric war. What is hyper-asymmetric war? How about a single person destroying a city's infrastructure or its social fabric with a laptop? That's hyper-asymmetrical war. The Army operating concept does a great job in describing the converging future. However, when you look at our operations today and think about how we have to fundamentally change the way of thinking to adopt to that new reality. For the main obstacle to operational convergence is cognitive. We haven't made the mental leap to break down the stovepipes that exist within the information environment and between the information environment and the operational environment. So what do I mean? While the information environment is converging, organizationally, we've fragmented the roles and responsibilities among many stakeholders. So let me take you on a little history on how we describe the information environment using information operations. In 1996 is when we first started talking about information operations. We've struggled to understand and define it and to integrate it operationally. It started with what was called command and control warfare and information warfare with components of psychological operations, military deception, operational security, physical destruction, and electronic warfare. This concept changed 3 times between 1996 and 2009. To be blunt, we've struggled to organize to the disruption. Disruption plays havoc in hierarchical organizations. Think back to all the discussions on Ori Brofman's book, Starfish and Spider. In 2009, we removed the term information operations and we just called it information with information task. And by this time, computer network operations was part of that doctrine and included computer network attack, computer network exploitation, and computer network defense, the forerunners of cyber doctrine. And electronic warfare was broken into electronic protect and electronic attack. Then we took those vertical stovepipes and we horizontally divided the responsibility for the information task between the G7 information officer, the G6 for information protection, fire support coordinator for command and control, all on a foundation of intelligence, a G2 function, with military deception to the G5 and operational security to the G3. Does anyone see a problem here? This is 2009, and that construct failed too. And in 2010, Cyber Command was established. Some would say because of the failures with Byzantine Yankee in 2008, and some would say it's because cyber had reached a maturity where it's now an opportunity. And we made another attempt to organize the information environment in 2013 and address the ideas through an inform and influence construct. This too has failed. And here we are today. The Army's struggling with defining the information environment in ways that it can be used for operations, and this is not a unique Army problem. It's a joint problem, and I would argue even a national security issue. For framing the separation of the information and operational environments also hinders on how we capitalize on rapid technological convergence. Technological convergence is happening today in the information environment, but we're divergent organizationally and operationally. So what's the way ahead? Well, I actually believe there's only one environment. It's the operational environment, and in that operational environment, information is playing larger and larger roles. We must think differently. Our competitors and adversaries around the world have adapted. It's a form of asymmetry. They've seen our overwhelming dominance in the operational environment. I often stop here. Think about this. In 14 years of war, we've never had a platoon overrun. That's operational dominance. If you read military history, that is just stunning dominance. But are we the same in the information environment? Our adversaries are now using the information environment to offset this dominance, which is why I believe you're seeing a convergence between these two environments. Look at any news feed, and you see both state and non-state actors blending cyber, electronic warfare, and information operations as part of their operations, and we see this convergence as a decisive operation with an attempt to stay below the threshold that would elicit a call for arms. I'll go further and say mastery of the convergence on the information environment has a much better chance of delivering sustainable political outcomes. For whether it's the Russians in the Ukraine, ISIL in the Middle East, North Koreans here in our own country, or China in the South China Sea, our adversaries are merging information capabilities to achieve operational and even strategic effects. And what's more disturbing, they're using the convergence of the innovation technologies that we developed here in this country more effectively than we are. To paraphrase Professor Audrey Cronin, a scholar in international affairs, why are ISIS and Putin's Russia giving us lessons in how to use our own technology? Going back to my example of the smartphone, if we think about this mobile device here in my hand, as representing convergence of technology in the cyberspace domain, there would be many staff functions or organizations in the Army that would be responsible for each of its functions. The Signal Corps for its communications function, the public affairs or information operation for social media apps, intelligence for collection and recording functions, electronic warfare for freedom to operate in the electromagnetic spectrum, and the list goes on. The question is, can we adapt? We recognize and welcome the technological convergence. Do we have the will to intellectually converge within the information environment and then converge that into the operational environment? Can we tear down the organizational barriers to convergence that enable the effective deployment of capabilities to achieve our nation's strategic goals? We have to start somewhere. Cyberspace operations relies on the integration of cyber, signal, intelligence, electronic warfare, and information operations, and fires. However, all of these critical functions receive direction from and are controlled by many different stakeholders in the Army, all who have different purposes and different missions. This divergence of responsibilities not only lessens our ability to mass effects, but it increases our vulnerabilities through a lack of coordination, collaboration, and control. For over the long term, I believe we need to consider convergence under one operational organization to execute operations and better integrate cyber, information operations, electronic warfare, signal, and related intelligence functions. Convergence is happening. We all know it, and we all see it. The Army must keep pace and converge cognitively, breaking down the walls. Our history is filled with stories of visionary leaders who helped the Army transform and adapt, and a few who failed to see the writing on the wall. The Army's last Chief of Cavalry, General Keir, in 1939 on the eve of World War II, testified before Congress saying, "I'm convinced that the American horse, cavalry today, constitutes the most effective, highly mobile fighting force in the world for operations on the American continent or similar areas." General Keir staunchly resisted the technological convergence of firepower, mobility, and protection that mechanized armor offered. He and others were not able to make the mental leap to facilitate convergence in military operations necessary to capitalize on that technological convergence. We're at an important juncture in the Army, of which we have a great opportunity to update our thinking how we achieve operational convergence. And the good news, this isn't insurmountable. The efforts and stunning advances in technology made by those, represented by those in the room, provide this opportunity. For those of you here with General Fogarty's presentation, we can do much of this now. Cyber support to Corps and below can drive this. We're already working with General Baker's team that every combat training center rotation has DODN operations as one of its major elements. And we have 4 rotations this year as full spectrum operations that are converging: defensive cyberspace operations, offensive cyberspace operations, information operations, and electronic warfare. We recognize our operations must adapt, and when that starts by thinking differently about convergence. We can act now to adapt and transform our operations and organizations to realize this potential that we take for granted in everyday objects like this cell phone. In closing, I want to thank AFCEA for another great conference and the opportunity to meet and talk with you today. I look forward to moving forward, achieving a common purpose that allows us to fully harness this incredible power and opportunities of convergence for our future. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Sir, I'm John Rutt, and the questions will be coming from back here. The first question is, how does the Army enable operational convergence at the tactical level?
So we've started, one of the 5 big areas we're going to concentrate on this year is cyber support to Corps and below. This here is actually, we're working this part right now as part of cyber support to Corps and below. So General Fogarty talked about this piece. This was actually 3rd Brigade 25th Infantry rotation. We have 4 more rotations over the next 10 months that's going to inform this effort as we move to here. We're going to get to what's possible at each rotation, and we hope to see big leaps as we go forward. And what do I mean by what's possible? We can do this part now, which is get the 6, the 2, IO, EW, fire support, and signal all in one classified space where they can all interact with each other. We can do that now. We may be able to get to this Now, this is a little harder, and we need a lot of help from the PEOs and PMs, et cetera, but I believe we can get there, and once we have this will become a lot easier to do. The bottom line is we're just going to get what we can at each rotation and try and spiral this as fast as possible. I believe at the end of this year, we're going to be able to define what we really want this to look like.
Okay, sir, thank you. The next question is, what impediment do you see for the speed of convergence? Is it technology, culture, or acquisition policy?
I think we're breaking down a lot of the challenges with acquisition, and Mr. Pontius is leading this effort. It's different ways to think about it. So, for example, many of you in here, let's just talk about tools. Normally, the way that we would do tools is we put a requirement out there, and then a PM or a contract would work to achieve that. How about if the requirement goes like this? We need a tool development infrastructure. That's the requirement for the Army. And then inside that infrastructure, it spirals itself of working with the Cyber Center of Excellence, which General Fogarty would validate those requirements. It would be a much more rapid process than we have today. For operational convergence, I believe a lot of it's culture. I mean, I'm pretty frank here. When I came in, there were attempts originally, to merge the signal and intelligence corps. And when I talked to General Alexander about this, I said, why are we doing that? What we need is a narrow cyber expertise that can serve as an integration, but we need a signal corps and we need an MI corps. We need an EW force, we need an IO force. It's about how do we put it together to accomplish. I mean, one of the challenges that we're working through here on cyber support to corps and below is I'm working with the team. I want a leader that's responsible for that. Now, to me, leader's best of breed. It could be a signal officer, it could be an MI officer, it could be EW officer, it could be an information. I don't really care, right? I just want somebody that can deliver. And I think most commanders wouldn't care either. They just want somebody who delivers. And we're going to sort that out here over time. But I think at certain times you may see different skill sets. So now, starting at the lower level and not starting at the enterprise, I think is the way to do this, because that's going to inform a higher level effort. Because we are going to go through some culture changes as we go through this.
Okay, sir. Next question. Bureaucracy can be seen as a way large organizations scale responsibility. Convergence models work well for small fusion-centric organizations. How do you scale for the enterprise to build a team of teams rather than a bureaucracy?
Right, so I fight a lot of bureaucratic battles. I have all kinds of terms for this. Uncommon veto power. Have you ever thought about, I'll use an example. Have you ever thought about how things go through the military? And I won't just confine this to the Army. It gets approved by the commanding officer, whether they be a colonel or a general. And then when it enters the next command, it enters at a much lower level. And it starts at majors and colonels again, and then it rides up to the top of that organization. And then we send it to the headquarters DA, and it enters again with the colonel, and we ride it up. I mean, does anybody think this is going to work for the future? And this is what I've talked to the senior leadership of the Army about. We're staffing ourselves to death. So some bureaucracy is necessary. Not all bureaucracy is necessary. So I believe that we're starting to get the kind of traction that we need. In the wars, the way we broke down the bureaucracies, we created fusion cells. And fusion cells were flat, right? It's the ability to take information that existed across a theater and share that information real time with everyone without people saying, well, wait, that was in my sector. No, that was in my area of operation. All that went away because of the necessity to have fast operations. That's what we need in this space. It doesn't mean you're irrelevant. It means bring everyone into one place and have the information shared. And if we do that, I believe we'll dominate in this environment, in the information environment.
Okay, sir. Next question. Where do traditional fires, meaning artillery, missiles, etc., fit into the emerging cyber landscape? Specifically, where do they fit into our cyber mission?
Yeah, so 18 months ago, when General Odierno asked me what was the number one skill set I needed, I said I need fire warrant officers, because we couldn't get our targets onto the deck, and because we didn't understand how that worked inside the command. So what I would argue is we have a very good fire structure. Why would we take that apart? It works quite well. It's dominant. Why don't we harness it for this space? And so I believe that the fires personnel that we put on each team are absolutely critical because that's how you integrate it. It's not cyber for the sake of cyber. It's cyber that's integrated either on its own or with kinetic effects to accomplish a mission. And sometimes people want to treat cyber as its own little special piece. You started seeing this in 3rd Brigade 25th, where they started realizing, hey, if we use cyber at this point, that will create effects on the adversary that will enhance our kinetic capabilities or enhance our non-kinetic capabilities. But this is the area that we really have to continue to mature. And I think we're going to see this because this is the difference of the reason I have a lot of hope in this is you really have 3,500 young soldiers out there, fairly young soldiers in comparison to me, coming up with good ideas. And when you put the right team down there, our cyber professionals, IO professionals, EW professionals, signal professionals, intelligence professionals, they start having all kinds of good ideas. And they're like, wait, can you make it do that? In between, we also did a rotation with the Ranger Regiment. That was quite fascinating. They came in at a much higher level. And so they're like, can you do this? Yes. Oh, that's great. And so we brought a lot of that stuff back for our playbook. And also got some ideas. We need to develop these kind of capabilities to enhance their operations. So I believe when you start having this, what it's going to cause in the Army is all the operational commanders are going to start getting pretty excited about this capability. And when you get excitement inside the operational commanders, they're going to put a lot of requirements on me and General Fogarty to deliver more in this space. If you think about it, if we do this right, in phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, it makes phase 3 look a lot different.
This will be your last question. Is there a strategy for collaboration and convergence outside of the Department of Defense?
Well, cyber's joint. It's born joint. You know, our portion of the 133 cyber mission teams is 41. To kind of give you a sense here, just give you a quick little update on this. In September of 13, we had 2. Today we have 27, and we have all 41 in some form of build. All 41 will be either in their initial operating capability or fully operationally capable by the end of this time next year. When you think about that, that's stunning growth. What's a little bit scary is that we're deploying these teams when they're initially operating capability. We would never do that. I mean, I had to stand up a new brigade. I went through a certification process. Here, the minute you have capability, you're on mission. And in one case already, we deployed them before they were initially operating capability because we needed them that fast. So that construct, though, is joint. And what do I mean is some operations recently, it may be a Navy team that starts and Army team comes in after them. Or you have a Navy team doing something over here and there's something over here, and they're talking directly to each other. So it's very, very joint in its construct. I think that will continue because all of the training for the cyber mission force is joint in nature, and we have to continue that as we go forward. And I know the work that General Fogarty is doing, and to a degree ACI, it's not only the joint side, it's the interagency side. Our relationship with the FBI is a critical piece. Our relationship with the Department of Homeland Security is a critical piece. And our relationship with some intelligence agencies is a critical piece. We have people working in all those now. So we expand out so that we can collaborate better because it's converged. The threat isn't limited to just the military. In fact, I would argue some in this room, we've had actors, right, that are not active in the military space. They're active in the commercial space. When they show up in the military space, we think we have something new, right? And then all you got to do is do a little bit of research, and all of a sudden you figure out, wait, there's a lot that's already known out here. But this goes to what General Fogarty kind of talks about. It's all arranged in silos right now. And I think Admiral Rogers is doing a lot of work to break down these silos and have shared understanding, supported by Secretary Carter. He's made this a priority. Cyber's a priority for the Department of Defense. the work that he's trying to do with information sharing between Department of Defense, academia, and industry, I think is pretty groundbreaking. I think we're pushing on an open door. I think you're going to see information sharing in ways that we haven't really seen before. And I say that because if the current culture is, it's hard for DoD to talk to industry, right? There's a lot of lawyers that get involved. Trust me, well, you know that, all right? For me to talk to many of you, you know the challenges that I work through. But I think over time we need we need to still have structure, but we need a much more collaborative system because we're facing an enemy that's not just limited to military. We need a much more collaborative system than we have today. The good news is I think that's happening. So if I look at where we are today, where we'll be a year from now, be pretty stunning. And when I look at where we'll be 5 years from now, that will be simply amazing. I do not want to overstate what General Fogarty talked about earlier. When you have the Cyber Center of Excellence combined with a number of its operational forces, such as 7th Signal Command, the MI Brigade that's here, National Security Agency Georgia that's here, there's no place that's linked together in our Army that has the institution, the operation linked where you can tip and cue each other. And so when you think about that, the school that Colonel Buckner's running right now, we'll be able to take real examples and bring real events right in the classroom. And the way we're training these young lieutenants, they're going to be trained to the level they go right on mission. There's no come to your unit, get integrated, take a while. They're going to be trained to that point. And so I think the work that's being done here in collaboration with the Army Cyber, in collaboration with the Army Cyber Institute, is going to deliver some incredible capability for the Army. But we're not in this by ourselves. We need academia and industry, because you all, we really need your help as we go forward. There's so much that you all are doing that we could tap into. If I could just make one point to highlight, Mr. Pontius is here today. He's really leading the acquisition side of this. I think we are operating for the industry partners in here. We're operating on an open architecture, okay, built off of OpenStack with virtualized instances. So when you have the conversations with us, that's kind of how it starts. Okay, I'll save you a lot of time. There's a lot of great capability out of here, and we want to be able to bring that in here. This has been looked at by Cyber Command, and I believe that kind of the methodology that the Army's worked here will be adopted by Cyber Command in many ways, because it gives the most agility to bring in anybody that has the right capability. If you could virtualize it, it can go right on mission as we see, and it'll be this competition to who delivers best capability at that time. And we see, so I think that is going to be an incredible advancement, because we haven't really had a structure like that before.
Sir, that was our final question. Please hold your applause as we welcome Lieutenant General Bob Shea back to the stage to thank him on behalf of AFCEA and our audience and for a very special presentation.
Well, thank you, General Cardon, for your very thoughtful and certainly thought-provoking and insightful comments. It's really refreshing to see the thought leadership that has evolved in this world of cyber and the Army in particular as we meet to here, as you look at the way forward over the years. So again, thank you very much for the insights that you've given us along with General Fogarty gave us this morning. So it's very much appreciated, and it really looks like you've got a plan and thought process on the way to move forward. In lieu of a gift, we're going to make a presentation to the Wounded Warriors on your behalf. So thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Cardon and Shea will now present in honor to one of our cyber warriors. Joining them on the stage is AFCEA Vice President for Defense Operations, Colonel Mike Warlick, United States Marine Corps, retired.
Good afternoon, and I hope you enjoyed your lunch. The St. Isidore Award was established in 2012 through the vision of First Commander of Army Cyber Command, Lieutenant General Rhett Hernandez, U.S. Army retired, who is here with us today, in close coordination with AFCEA International. There are 3 categories of awards: gold, silver, and bronze. Each award is achieved through a nomination and board process to determine the level of cyber contributions and expertise throughout Army Cyber Command and more broadly the Joint Services and industry. The gold medal is normally presented at the annual Army Cyber Ball, which was just held last weekend up in Virginia. The Cyber Award is presented to those individuals who have demonstrated the highest standards of honor and moral character and provided considerable and lasting contributions to the cyber mission. Their values and warrior ethos epitomize the cyber warrior spirit. Today, we will recognize a past member of cyber community for exemplary performance. Lieutenant General Cardon and Lieutenant General Shea will present the Armed Forces Communication Electronics Association Honorable Order of St. Isidore Gold Award. I would now like to invite former Navy Command Master Chief, retired Danny Miller, U.S. Cyber Command, to join Generals Cardon and Shea on the stage. Be it known by all cyberspace warriors who may be honored by his presence that Daniel J. Miller has been tried and found worthy to be numbered among our trusted members, has been gathered into our fold and duly initiated into the solemn mysteries of this esteemed Order of St. Isidore. Be it further understood, we hereby confer upon Daniel J. Miller the Gold Shield of St. Isidore for conspicuous long-term service both in the Department of Defense and within industry on behalf of the Cyber Joint Forces. His career has embodied the spirit, dignity, and sense of sacrifice and commitment epitomized by all cyber warrior recipients who have so singularly distinguished themselves as contributors to the cyber mission that they have few peers. We enjoin all cyberspace warriors henceforth to show due honor and respect whenever this individual may enter their midst. Signed this 15th day of August, 2015, Lieutenant General Robert M. Shea, USMC, retired President and CEO, AFCEA International, and Lieutenant General Edward C. Cardon, U.S. Army, Commanding General, United States Army Cyber Command and 2nd Army. Okay, you already did this, but let's re-congratulate Danny Miller on his significant event.
Please welcome Lieutenant General Bob Wood back to the stage.
Danny, congratulations. I know that recognizes years of hard work and leadership. We're very proud to present that award as part of AFCEA's relationship with Army Cyber and our mission force as we honor those who are contributing so significantly to this building of a cyber capability in our Army. I think all of you would agree that General Cardon's remarks indicated that the synergy between General Fogarty and General Cardon is terrific, productive, and it's about as constructive a model as I've ever seen of action, reaction, counteraction. You guys are like playing jazz up here together. You like two people in the same band, but we're really making progress. Glad to see it, glad to have us here with our industry partners. And we're going to break from lunch and move off to some more activities. I've got I think a map going to come up here. And I want to talk about specifically how we're going to get around here. We've got this afternoon a number of things. We have over here in the Cummings room, we've got a class that'll be discussing a course that'll be talking about infrastructure security. Again, it's in this back level here. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands we're here, and that you go back around, back by registration. This whole hallway is made up of theater activities and in the Cummings room, a class. And that'll be really where the afternoon's center of instruction and presentations will take place. We will, however, at 2:30 come back into this room here. And in this room, we're going to have a presentation it's really a panel on cyber convergence, a government perspective, moderated by Lieutenant General Rhett Hernandez, Army retired. And so we're going to break from here. I'd invite your attention back here in terms of the theater sessions and class. Onto the floor, of course, we'll have our exhibitors down there continuing with presentations and networking. And then at 2:30, back into this room for for those who would like to come back here. We will pipe that into the floor as well, a cyber convergence panel that I think you'll find extremely interesting. A reminder, at the end of the day, we have on the floor, we'll have a reception for those who are here. We're looking forward to that with involvement from a lot of leaders from the Cyber Center of Excellence on the floor to talk with you about their mission and your needs and capabilities that can help them. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes lunch. As you clear the room, we'll reset it for our 2:30 panel. Thank you very much.